Well, thanks, Chris. Interesting that our speaker this evening is speaking on housing, Heather Thompson's presentation on home share, when so much has been happening in the housing area just very recently. I'm talking about the tiny homes issue that came up in the local newspaper on Saturday and Monday and went to City Council last night. Earlier in the week, a church from downtown Kitchener was telling us about adding a second and third story after they found a family of 3 on the other side of the vent, and because they were trying to find some warmth in cold weather. So they're going to be building shortly 40 some studio type units, and Indwell is partnering with them. They're the same people as the ones repurposing the church that is between Grand River Hospital on King Street and KCI. And then there's one other group doing something really interesting at the end of Bridgeport Road, and that's the Menno Homes, who are building 48 units, and something like 15% of them are zoned as inclusionary units. So tonight, our theme is home share, a concept that Heather Thompson is going to be speaking about. And whether people are 25 or 45 or 75, I think this is a topic that probably has some interest for you and people in your circle. It's not going to be the solution for everybody, but it might be a solution for some. Heather Thompson works full-time for the region of Halton, where she's dealing mainly with age-friendly initiatives, and home share is under her jurisdiction. She is a social worker by background, has a graduate degree from Queen's in aging and health, has been around our province in various places giving a presentation on home share, and in other parts of Canada, and I think she's been asked to speak overseas as well. So we're very much looking forward to the 25 slides or so that she has with her, and letting you know that if you have questions, please put them in the chat room, and Heather will get to them after her presentation. So we invite you as members, and if you're a guest tonight, to welcome Heather Thompson speaking about home share.
Thank you, Janice.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I need to share my screen. I can share that. So, okay, let me just get that. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
I can do a full screen. I don't know if that's better or not, but if you can see this, that's all right this way?
Yeah, we can see it fine.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much. Sorry, just getting the logistics out of the way. And thank you for inviting me here this evening, to Christine and to Janice. I really appreciated the opportunity. I think it was before COVID when I was asked to come and present. So that's going way back, and sort of forgot about it, but it was in my calendar. So thank you again. And congratulations to your group. 100 years, that's amazing. So wonderful. So that's just terrific. And also, I just want to say happy National Volunteer Week, which is this week for all of those who volunteer in your communities. It's been an amazing year. I just seen some great outpouring of support and help from volunteers informally and formally across Ontario and across my community in Halton. So thank you for that. The next slide. I'm just trying to move to the next slide. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so, normally when I have given this presentation, it has been in person. So I find it a little different on Zoom. simply because it's hard because you can't see the whole audience and read people's faces or if they have questions, that kind of thing. So I'll do the best I can as we go through it, and hope I don't bore you too much. Yeah, so I do work for Community Development Halton, which is a nonprofit organization. And my work at Community Development Halton is chairing the Burlington Age Friendly Council. And I also chair the Halton Age Friendly Network and the Southern Ontario Age Friendly Network. And we do have a partnership with Halton Region. So I actually don't oversee the home share program. The region has taken it on, but we certainly act as advisors and have been out a lot speaking about home share and the philosophy of home share. So I'll be talking today a little bit about home share. I'll also be just touching base on some other types of housing options that people are looking at, which is so needed today. And especially as we think about all the tragedies that have happened in long-term care and others. And we know that most of the population has no desire, certainly to go into long-term care. And for many, they're questioning retirement homes as well. So I think people need a wide variety of options, and there's not one size that fits all, that's for sure. I just want to touch a little bit on age-friendly communities, as that's sort of the where we started from in our framework. So as we know, an age-friendly city encourages and promotes active aging by optimizing opportunities for health, participation, and security in order to enhance quality of life as people age. And a key strategy to facilitate the inclusion of older persons is to make our world more age-friendly. An age-friendly world enables people of all ages to actively participate in community activities and treats everyone with respect regardless of age. And it is a place that makes it easy for older people to stay connected to people that are important to them. So I know Waterloo has done some amazing work, some age-friendly work, so and activities that are happening in your region. Just briefly again, just the dimensions of an age-friendly city. There was 8 domains of an age-friendly city that have been identified. And this was done through the World Health Organization Global Age-Friendly Cities Project in 2006. And they developed a guide in 2007. And Public Health Canada was very much involved with the identification of these 8 domains, which was done through 158 focus groups across 33 cities globally. And they were people who were asked, so older adults as well as caregivers and people working with older adults and supporting them, what were the sort of 8 or the most important things when they're looking at an age-friendly city? And these are the 8 domains that came up. Transportation and housing always seems to be, it's not really in any particular order, but certainly in my experience in talking to other folks across our province and even across Canada and other nations, transportation and housing always seems to be the biggest issue, and accessibility and all the other pieces as well. So again, just some very brief statistics here. As we know, in 2016, for the first time in history, we had more people over the age of 65 than under 14 years of age. And by 2031, about 1 in 4 Canadians is expected to be 65 years of age or older. And in Ontario, the number of seniors age 65 and over is projected to almost double from 2.4 million to 4.6 million by 2041. So when people say, oh my gosh, there's this gray tsunami happening and people are aging, and really it's not a tsunami. We've known it's coming for many, many decades, that the baby boomers are aging, and we haven't planned very well. So all of a sudden now we're all getting to that age, and many of us. And so what's going to happen? We're all living much longer. Many of us are expected to live well beyond 65, when used to be the retirement age. And so how do we plan for that? And how do we plan for a good quality of life? So I just thought I would share with you some of these stats. Working at Community Development Halton, I have the privilege of working, we are a social planning research council, and I have the privilege of working with my colleagues who they put together some stats for me, which I thought were very helpful. And I see that Waterloo region total population around 535,000 is very, very similar to Halton region where I live. And actually your percentage of senior population is very similar too. So the percentage of seniors, you have 77,190 seniors, and that's from the 2016 census. So you can see on that graph, from 2001, the increase of the population of seniors. And when I say seniors, it's 65 and up, as the government, when they define seniors, it is 65 and up. And then we look at the proportion of living alone individuals by age and sex. And so again, from the 2016 census, we do see that, starting from the age of 60 to 64, the female population, certainly more living alone. And then you can see 85 years and older, the number of women living alone is fairly significant. And life expectancy is approximately 84 years per woman currently, compared to 79.8 years for men. And this is from the Health Adjusted Expectancy Stats Canada from 2018. And, it's interesting because in Canada, in 2016, there were over 8,000 centenarians in Canada, with 5 women to every man. So again, many more women living alone. This is the percentages. And on this next graph, you will just see the numbers to be more particular. So the numbers of women or men living alone. And as you can see, it's quite significant there. I just wanted to share with you, and I did add quite a few resources at the end of this presentation for you to access on different reports that you might want to read on your own later. But this was a report from on housing needs of seniors, a federal report that went out in June 2019. And I thought it was interesting because I think it just speaks to not only across Canada, but certainly within the provinces that we live, that there's a need to increase the supply of housing for seniors that consider the range of health needs and income status of older adults. And we know that senior women are more likely to live alone and have a lower income. And the need to incentivize builders and planners to incorporate features of universal design for accessibility into new builds and renovations. I think, it's so much easier if you're starting from scratch in your building to just make those hallways wide enough and doorways wide enough. I think of my own house that I live in, which is probably about 50 years old, and the bathroom door is pretty narrow. So if I had a wheelchair to go in there, I just couldn't. It'd be very difficult. So when I think of new builds, this would be sort of a no-brainer. It doesn't matter if you're 65 or 80 or whether you're 20 and need that accessibility. It's very important. And to encourage and promote more diverse, affordable housing options for the well-being of seniors. And all levels of government can encourage the well-being of older adults by promoting the inclusion of age-friendly principles into future building and space design policy and planning, which could also include neighborhood design, city planning, transportation, and health and home care services. Because as we know, living in many of our communities across our regions, we're built for cars. So many of us have our cars, and there's not a lot of bus stops when you go into these little neighborhoods. And so for some people, for example, in Burlington, they may have to walk 2 kilometers to get to a bus stop. And so we need to think of how we can design things in a better way and to be more accessible. Some other recommendations from the report: that mixed use developments with housing located near services and amenities to reduce existing barriers. Allow construction of smaller units, such as accessory dwelling suites, and I can talk about that in a bit, and retrofitting homes to improve accessibility, and develop housing suitable for intergenerational living and the construction of affordable rental units. So there are many push and pull factors of housing moves by seniors. So housing moves by seniors can be generally characterized as either lifestyle, or planned, or crisis. And when we think of lifestyle, it may be because of a desired location, choice in lifestyle. A planned move could be wanting to be close to your family, not wanting to be isolated, have some home security, lower maintenance, greater mobility. Also, downsizing can allow more time and flexibility for travel and pursuit of hobbies, more time with family and friends. But then a crisis, that's often when we're faced with these emergencies where you may have an accident or a fall, You may suffer a loss of a loved one. You might need more care and support needs, or your health and mobility changes. And those are really hard times to make those kinds of decisions. So it's underpinned by several push and pull factors. And for example, some push factors can include difficulty maintaining the home, mobility issues, cost of upkeep with a larger home. And again, pull factors can include the desire to move closer to family members, be closer to local amenities. For many older adults, there's often a delay in the decision to move. And this occurs when a crisis is imminent, often because of strong emotional attachments to your home, desire to sustain social networks and stay within one's own community and neighborhood. And just the whole thought of moving can be very overwhelming. My husband and I are also thinking, of moving, and my husband's retired, and we live in a side split, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm really thinking now it's time we should think about moving perhaps to a bungalow. But right now with the housing, it's crazy, and it's almost impossible. And even the thought of moving after we've been here over 30 years is pretty tough, because it's like, oh gosh, it's overwhelming. So I can imagine if you're in the middle of a crisis or your health is really deteriorating, that becomes even a harder factor. So I just want to talk about some research on home share models. And just to let you know, with the Burlington Age Friendly Council, about 20, I guess it was in 2013 or 14, we had many committees, our housing committee and our communications committee and other ones, transportation. And our housing one, we brought many stakeholders together, and we thought, what could we do to make a difference? And Burlington is pretty well built out, so now it's more density building, but we have a lot of homes in Burlington. We have over 35,000 older adults over the age of 65 that live in Burlington. And so quite a significant number, and many are living in large homes with 3 or 4 bedrooms and are living on their own. And so we thought, well, let's look at some models out there that maybe we can, they can share some of the information with us and see what we could do. So initially we found 4 home share programs in Canada at that time, one in Red Deer and in Alberta, St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and 2 in Quebec, in Gatineau and Jonquière. And we also found that Calgary had a home share at that time, and they housed over 150 people in 2013. And the person that was running that program was Cheryl Snyder, who now oversees Home Share Canada website, and she's also the international chair of the International Home Share globally. And they closed down due to lack of funding, which was really unfortunate. But we learned a lot from Cheryl about how they manage the Home Share program. And actually, her and I went to visit the Home Share Vermont. And Home Share Vermont had their home share program for over 35 years. And that was quite an experience, just going and sitting with the one staff person and the executive director and meeting the volunteers there as well. And I'll talk about the volunteers later, who really did an amazing job with this program. So they were very helpful in us sort of planning and moving forward. And we found there are many home share programs throughout the world, particularly in the US. There were different models, and also in Europe, and particularly the UK, we found a lot of different types of home share. And there is an international congress every 2 years on home share. And the next year it'll be in Dublin, Ireland. So I haven't been to any, but would love to go. And that would be really exciting to hear what others are doing globally. And again, there's the Home Share Canada website. So home share, there is a home share international network, and it's a learning community that enables members to share news and information, develop good practice, share tools and resources, and work cooperatively for mutual benefit. There's also other home shares right now. Toronto Home Share came after us, and they're doing a really great job in terms of matching students with seniors. And there's also McMaster Symbiosis. It's a student senior co-housing program in Hamilton. And they match graduate students with seniors as well. So there's some really neat things happening. We've had lots of conversations with everybody. A lot of the home share programs are really focused on students and with seniors. And that was the same in Newfoundland. I don't believe their program is running now, but when they were running, they had students coming pre-university and they matched up them with older adults in their community, and it was a lot of international students, and it worked very, very well. And the one thing that older adults asked for is to have their driveway shoveled in the middle of winter. That's one thing they really needed having done. So plus many other things. And in terms of our own home share, is, with Halton, I see home share as any age. And I'll tell you honestly, the calls that I receive just asking about what home share is and if people are interested are mostly women in their 60s who are maybe have transitioned or maybe have been laid off work or maybe going through some personal things and need a place to live, but also feel they can offer a lot in terms of providing some support to an older adult. So that's the majority of calls that I get. Also, men in their 50s and 60s as well. So the Halton Home Share Program, this is our vision statement or mission statement. Home Share empowers home providers and home seekers the ability to live in affordable, shared accommodation, inclusive of respect, choice, dignity, and is of mutual benefit to all. And as Janice had mentioned, it's good for many, but not for everyone. So we make that very clear because for some people, it's not for them, but for others, they are considering it. And for some older adults, they may be very interested, but their adult children may think it's not such a great move for them. So then again, it's important to educate all audiences on home share and what it's about. So what is home share? Well, home share is considered a living arrangement between two or more people who reside together in the same dwelling or home. And each person has his or own private space, usually their own bedroom, own bathroom perhaps, but they will share common areas such as a kitchen or living room. And household responsibilities can be shared or services exchanged for reduced accommodation expenses. And I've had people ask, well, maybe an older adult doesn't really need help in the home. They just want someone in the home with them. And I think that's fine too. I think there's so much flexibility with home share. I see it as not just being rigid, and every home share arrangement is different from another. So just some definitions as we go through here. Home providers are people that are interested in sharing their home. They have an extra room in their home that they want to rent out. I think that's great. And home seekers are people looking to share a living arrangement for someone for a variety of reasons. So it's affordable housing for someone who is looking. The region currently has, quite a wait list of people waiting for housing. And they also have a number of seniors on there as well, waiting for housing. So I think this is a really good fit in terms of maybe providing some support for seniors and then people that need some housing. In the meantime, I think that's certainly for many, it's a good fit. And home sharers are currently living with the home provider. So the profile of older adults who are considering home share, generally they're older adults who do live alone. Their family and friends may live far away, and so many of us today don't live close to our loved ones. I have nieces and nephews that live all over the world, and that happens. My own brother and his kids live in England and in Switzerland and in the States. So, and he lives here in Halton. So that is a challenge sometimes, right? When you want to be close to people and they've moved away, and people want to stay in their own neighborhood and community. Many people have lived in their community for years and years. They're connected to their groups or the senior center or perhaps their faith group, and that's their support network. And many older adults sometimes move out to be closer to their children, or if the loved one dies, if a spouse dies, the adult child may say, well, come live out our way. And they may not necessarily want to, but they don't want to burden their kids, so they go, but oftentimes they're not very happy. So I think it's important to really, have these discussions, and when it comes time to make decisions, it has to be what's best for the person. Many struggle to stay in their home because they do not want to go into a care facility, and especially as we've heard in the last year, how challenging that has been. And many are lonely and would like some companionship, and are finding perhaps this difficulty maintaining household responsibilities. So what kind of help do they ask for? Well, in doing my research and talking to others, one of the most important things for older adults when they're considering home share is having someone in the home at night for security. It's just peace of mind. So let's say an older adult is going to the washroom at night and they're afraid they may have a slip or fall. It's just nice to know someone is there, or hearing strange noises, or you never know. So I think this is certainly what we've heard is the security at night and safety. People often ask for help with shopping for their groceries and food items, gardening and snow shoveling, caring for pets, cooking, cleaning, laundry, and companionship. So the benefits of home share, certainly for the home seeker, it's a low cost of rent in exchange for service, which is usually determined by the home provider. So let's say the home provider may say, oh, I just need help with my groceries, or I just need help with doing my laundry. So they determine what it is they may need and being realistic about that. If they don't need so much, that's fine. If they need more, then that's something to be discussed. But generally the average amount of hours provided for service could be anywhere from 4 to 10 hours a week, depending on what they need. It is an opportunity to save for the home seeker. It's good accommodation. It's companionship for them too. And for many, I know in Calgary, they had many newcomers who came and were looking to locate to Calgary and weren't sure where they wanted to live. So home share was a good sort of stopgap for them. And it was also an opportunity to practice their English skills. And it was very cost effective for them. In Calgary, it was interesting because they had a lot of students that were actually taking part in the home share program. And the biggest thing they found was the students didn't know how to do, provide services in the home and cooking or cleaning. So they actually had to stop and train a lot of the students for a couple of weeks on just those kinds of tasks. So that was rather interesting. For the home provider, of course, people can remain in their homes and communities, be with their friends and their social network. And many would remain home if they had some support and to be able to maintain their independence. Home share can offer companionship and certainly reduce isolation and provide security. So we know isolation and loneliness has been a major factor over the last year and certainly before that, and it will not stop. And isolation can reduce your quality of life greatly and your life. So it's important to have connections in your life. And if you don't have people around you, it can really affect your life. And so it's important that there are opportunities for that to happen. So home share does provide some of that. And I think home share can be flexible for many situations. I have had couples that have asked for someone to come into their home and provide support, or it could be a single parent going with an older adult. And I know in Calgary that did happen where the older adults did some childminding as well and really enjoyed that. So I think, we just have to be open and flexible about what home share can be and that it's not restrictive. It can be very, very flexible. So the Halton Home Share Toolkit, we developed through the Burlington Age Friendly Housing Committee a toolkit which is fairly comprehensive, and it provides a resource to individuals who are interested in learning more about home share as a housing alternative. And I have my email address at the end, and anyone can email me or call me and I can send that. And it has gone far and wide. It has gone right across Canada and elsewhere. It was just something we put together after we did our research to look at what do you need to think about if you want to consider home share. And this was before actually the region adopted the home share program. It was really to help people sort of guide the way and navigate if that was something they were interested in doing, and things you need to consider, such as if I'm the home provider, what kind of person do I want in my home? And what are my interests? And are the interests shared by the home sharer that would come in? Does the person have a pet? Do they have a car? All these kinds of things that one needs to ask, which is very important. But it is a very comprehensive self-resource tool that we feel anyone can use and benefit from. So one of the things we were very proud of is once we started this and developed the toolkit, and Halton region became involved as well, I did write to the World Health Organization, and they're listing things on their age-friendly practices on their database, and the Halton Home Share is on the World Health Organization database of age-friendly practices. So we're quite proud of that because it is a process to get it approved and in there. So it was nice to see that. So in terms of moving forward, so Halton Region adopted the Halton Home Share Program through Halton Housing Help, which is like an organization that's under the umbrella of the region and implements the program across Halton, which is Burlington, Oakville, Milton, and Halton Hills, which is Georgetown and Acton. And the Burlington Age Friendly Council's Housing Committee is involved in outreach and education as of today, as I'm doing today, and acts as an advisory. Quite often we'll get calls about home share, and then I just tell them about the program, and often they'll say, oh yeah, I am interested in that, and then they go forth to Halton Housing Help, or they may decide it may not be quite for them, or they're just curious and they're thinking about it. The home share program works to match older adults who want to stay in their homes with individuals who can help with household responsibilities. It does not involve the provision of personal care. So if somebody does need more of that personal care or other kinds of supports, that would be something that would have to go through the local health integrated network to provide that kind of care. So it really is just the household chores and responsibilities. If a home sharer is living with a home provider, and the home provider maybe after some time is having more challenges, then that's something that could be flagged, and ensuring that there's some more support in there if needed. So that's important. So getting started, and how we started was with Halton Housing Help, was establishing procedures and processes, establishing a home provider and home seeker registry. So if people were interested in becoming a home provider, or people were seeking accommodation in a home, there was a registry there, and they fill out an application form, interview form, as well as a home environmental safety scan is done by the staff, so they can go and see if the home is safe for someone to live in. Also to perform background checks, so police check and references on the home provider as well as the home seeker. So interestingly enough, when we were doing our research, there were police checks quite often done on the home seeker, but not on the home provider. So, we felt it was necessary really to do both. Very important for both to feel safe. So that's important. And then an orientation, of course, of what home share is. And this is all a free service as well. So some home shares and nonprofits will ask for maybe a fee if there is a final match, and it could range from $50 to $150, that kind of thing. And we haven't done that from Halton Home Share at this point, but it is something to consider. But there are also some for-profit home share programs out there that will charge much more than that. I think the whole goal for us was to make sure people were housed and had affordable housing, and people felt safe in their housing. Just to go back to that one as well, it's, with the applications that come in and the interviews, you really get a good feeling of what they like, what their lifestyle is like, if they have a job during the day, of course, if they have anything that they bring with them, a home seeker to a home provider's house, what their interests are, if they have family nearby or they have friends over, that kind of thing. So these are the kinds of things that we do are very important to ask. So again, the potential matches are from the registry. The home provider is provided the opportunity to meet with potential home seekers that meet the criteria. And the decision of a match is mutual agreement between home provider and home seeker as well. So, it may take, I remember the very first one, it took probably about 6 or 7 meetings and at a Tim Hortons. So we always recommend that they meet at a neutral place and just to get to chat, see, if they think this might be a good fit or not a good fit. But it has to be a mutual agreement between both. And the home share agreements outline the expectations and responsibilities of each party. So the home provider may say, this is what I'd really like, I need help with. And if the home share is in agreement to that, it's not a legal binding agreement, but it is written on paper as such that they agree to do for the expectations or responsibilities. And again, each agreement is unique to each living arrangement. It's not one size that fits all. And services, exchanges, and costs involved will vary depending on the needs of the respective parties. So, the average sort of rent that we have found that people are paying is anywhere from $600 to $700 a month in exchange for service. And but it really is up to the home provider to decide what is fair to them, and sometimes they need some guidance in that area as well. And I really like this because in Vermont they recommended that the home seeker move in with the home provider for a 2-week trial period before any final decisions are made. And they did say that ruled out 10% of some of the home shares. And just like any relationships, I mean, it can be challenging, and there could be conflict or just might not fit. So I thought that was a really good thing to do. And that's certainly something that we also recommend, that someone try it out for 2 weeks, see if they think it's going to work before they actually settle right in with everything. So I think that's still a very wise thing to do. And then, of course, it's the monitoring of home share arrangements. So this is very important, that initial monitoring and then ongoing continues. And that's through face-to-face visits, especially initially with the home provider and the home seeker, and to meet with them separately. And this is really to identify if there are any issues of power imbalance within the relationship. We want to make sure people are feeling okay and confident to disclose anything as if something may be happening, and to ensure it's safe. And that there's regular reports that are happening, and to identify level of participant satisfaction. Are they happy with the arrangements, and to assess any changes that may be going on, especially if there's any changes in health with the home provider or even home sharer, and to share information about additional resources that may be needed. So these are very important things. One of the things that hasn't happened is really strong evaluation component of home share. So I know the international body of home share is definitely looking at developing a consistent evaluation tool that could be used across home shares globally, and adapted to certainly each of the communities that are running home share. And I think that's very important because we don't have a really good handle on a lot of that right now at this point. So lessons learned, home share is about a mutual benefit and relationship rather than just affordable accommodation. So it really is about building that relationship, and not just the place to live. Sometimes I will get a call from someone saying, oh, I'm losing my housing, and so I need home share right away. Well, it doesn't happen that way. And generally I find through home share, it takes 3 to 4 months before a match can be made. There's always many more home seekers than there are home providers. And that seems very consistent across most home shares. So there has to be definitely a marketing plan that's consistent, that can reach out to people who can provide a home and the benefits it is for them. And to focus on the quality of matches and home share arrangements rather than quantities. So sometimes when you're writing grants to do home share, etc., it's about how many matches you're going to make. And for me, it's always been, and I think for others, certainly the quality of the match and the relationship is important in the investment and time into it. Home share is not for everyone. So again, if people say to me, oh, I don't know, if this is really for me, and if you're not comfortable, you're not comfortable, and to pursue it, that's fine. And but just to be open to other kinds of options is good. And again, family support is very important, that family feel comfortable with that as well, because I'm sure many older adults won't do it if they feel their family is not supportive of it. And again, the matches do take time. And to provide good information to help people make the right decisions for themselves. We also find that we need a dedicated staff person to the home share program. So right now, with Halton Housing Help through the region, it's the staff that work through there are dealing with a lot of other issues. So they're dealing with people that may be homeless and finding housing immediately. So the home share program is, it's there, but it's not fully dedicated to home share. There's not one person fully dedicated to home share. So I do feel that's very important, and that certainly has been evident from other home share programs. Volunteers are not being used at the moment, but I know in Vermont they had fantastic volunteers. When I went, they had 15 volunteers that I met that were retired teachers and social workers that were very involved in the program. And so they also were involved in helping to monitor situations and interviewing, and they were absolutely amazing. So I think there is a role for volunteers if that can be done. And just to go back a little bit in terms of HomeShare Vermont, they did a survey of their HomeShare. They have quite a few that are happening, and this is what they found, that 80% of their hosts or their home providers certainly felt safer in their home. 75% felt less lonely. 72% were much happier, and 64% worried less about money, and 63% enjoyed their home more, and 48% called their families less often for help, and 47% felt healthier. So I think those are kind of really neat statistics to think about. You know, we haven't done that because we haven't had a greater number of HomeShare arrangements at that point to do that. So just some other alternative housing models I just thought I would share with you. There are some co-housing models, and there is the Canadian Co-Housing Network, and that's the link to get to the Canadian Co-Housing Network. And it's a registered nonprofit organization that promotes the creation of co-housing communities as a model for sustainable development. So I think it's a really neat place to go and just to see what kind of co-housing models are out there. There is a Waterloo Region co-housing project. I don't know too much about it, but it is happening in Waterloo Region, and the plan is to build 30 homes, combining the advantage of privacy and shared common facilities. So that's something just to look at. You can see online there. There's also a co-housing. Hamilton started about a year and a half ago, looking at co-housing in Hamilton and purchasing property and having sort of separate buildings with a common building as well. So they are very involved with that at the moment. There's also in Peterborough, the Kawartha Commons is building a neighborhood in Peterborough area, which is a co-housing. Also, there's these secondary suites, or called accessory suites. So it's a private self-contained unit within an existing home. We have a few of these in Halton. So it has its own bathroom, kitchen, living area, and sleeping area. So it's a way of bringing in income for someone, but also provides housing for the person who needs it. So it offers several benefits to homeowners at all stages of life. And communities throughout Ontario have introduced secondary suites, and they're different in each community, and just checking with the bylaws with each of the municipalities. There's also garden suites, which are intended to be non-severable, which means they can't be turned into separate property from the main house. They remain under the same ownership and main house and are serviced with all the utilities such as water, sewer, and others through connection to the main house or on the street. And I think Toronto is looking at a project. They're doing several studies called Expanding Housing Options in Neighborhoods, and they're looking at the garden suite as a detached housing unit located in the rear yard, or something like laneway suites as well. And as Janice mentioned, talking about tiny houses, so they provide a very unique solution to many urban areas in providing housing, and the cost of them are much more affordable. There's also different models of care. The Oasis model out of Kingston was established by a grassroots group of older adults as tenants in an ordinary apartment building. And there was a lot of older adults living in that building, and they create a partnership between the landlord and the local health integration network. The landlord provides space for common use, which is supported and run by the adult volunteers, and the funding is provided by the LIN to provide an on-site coordination, which I think is really great. It's keeping people in their homes and not having to move out, or maybe keeping them from moving into retirement if they don't wish to, or other places. And the natural occurring retirement communities we're hearing more about, which is very similar to the Oasis model, and it was developed in the States in the 1980s and offers services in home or community where there are a high concentration of older adults. And so it could be in buildings or in surrounding areas to the buildings, where they offer social connections and supports, care, navigation, nutrition, and exercise. And I think both models have that preventative upstream approach to care and keeping people in their homes much longer. And I really like it because the older adults are part of the process. So they're involved, they have a voice, and it's a bottoms up, top down approach, which I think is very important. Just some other models. This is a co-housing unit in Saskatoon. This is a quote from them. We're not here to look after each other. We're here to look out for each other. And I think that was a very important concept for us. So these units are for sale. So they purchase together, but also have common space where they are together. There's a lot of co-housing models in British Columbia. Actually, there's quite a number out there. And this one is much closer to us. It's in Rockwood, near Guelph. And I've been there a few times. So the original farmhouse is there, as you can see. And the extension, they're on a corner lot, double lot. The extension was put on the side of the house. And this now has 6 units. And so it has a bedroom suite, and they have a common living areas in the kitchen and living room. And these units are for sale. So this is co-living, and they prefer to call it co-living than co-housing. And so that's another one. There's a lot of interesting groups coming together, and most of these groups are women who are coming together and wanting to share space together. Also, the Golden Girls Act, which is right now referred to the Standing Committee on General Government, but it's really looking at Ontario's aging population and to encourage innovative and affordable housing solutions for seniors. Local municipalities should not deter seniors from choosing affordable housing options and recognize that unrelated seniors living together can reap significant health, economic, and social benefits. So it really is, I think, for many people when they were trying to live together was to sort of stop any barriers. They're sharing a kitchen, they're sharing the areas. You know, it shouldn't be that challenging to come together and be together. So this is the Golden Girls Act. I think it came from one of the MPPs out of Durham, actually. So it's, I think it's great that this is happening. And as you probably have heard, the co-housing in Port Perry with these 4 ladies who all knew each other, purchased a house in Port Perry. And I love this. We have to get used to everybody's idiosyncrasies as a resident. We decided if something bugs you, get it out and keep the lines of communication open. We'll have a conversation, but do it very kindly. So I think that's one of the things you have to have good discussions about. If there is conflict, how would you resolve conflict? In our toolkit with the home share, we do put in there sort of steps to resolve conflict, because it will happen when people live together, no question. We also work with the Community Conflict Resolution Services of Halton, which is a nonprofit group, and consisting of many people who, some are lawyers and others that come together, they volunteer their time. And if there is conflict that you might need a neutral party to get involved, they are there that can help with those kinds of issues as well. So this group in Port Perry, they also help the Government of Ontario put together a guide, and I have that on the resource list. It's called Co-Owning a Home, Practical Information about Co-Owning a Home, and I'll have the link provided as well for that. So I think it's very helpful. And I tried to get them to come out and speak, but they're so busy. They were very popular when they moved in. They were all over the news, so it was exciting. So these are some of the resources that I have provided for you, and I'll certainly share this PowerPoint with Janice or Christine. So again, the Student and Seniors Co-Housing Program, which is really the home share, there's a link for that. The Toronto Home Share Program as well. Home Share Vermont, which gives you lots of tips and ideas. The Canadian Co-Housing Network. Co-Owning a Home, practical information about co-owning a home. And the Canada Housing and Mortgage Corporation has a piece there on secondary suites that offer income and adaptability. They also have a really good guide on maintaining independence through home adaptations, because sometimes that's all you need in your home. Maybe it's looking at your home, you know, through a new lens. And what do I need to stay here? Is how much will it cost me just to do some renovations? So I have a bedroom on the main floor or a bathroom on the main floor. What would that take? If I really like to live in the home I'm in now, what would it take? The universal design for new housing units. I think that's really a very good guide as well. The report I talked about at the beginning of my presentation on housing needs of seniors, that's there as well. And there's 2 books that I've read that I think are very helpful. And one is from Lindsay Green, The Perfect Home for a Long Life. And the newest book, and I think some of you may know this person, but Myra Welsh, with a reporter with the Star, Happily Ever After, Revolutionary Approaches to Long-Term Care. And I heard her speak last week, and it was very exciting because I think there's a lot of chatter about this now, just given the circumstances over the last year. Not that it was new last year, the challenges with long-term care, but certainly it brought it to the forefront on how we're failing many of our older adults who, in terms of their quality of life and how they wish to live. So I think this is, yes, by the end now. So it's home share and other options, a great alternative of housing that can meet the needs of many individuals. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Heather, there's a few questions on the chat. If
Okay.
you take a look at those, that would be great.
Okay, I should just stop sharing, I think. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, there we go. Sorry.
Oh, the first ones are with sound, but we've got that figured out.
Got that figured out? Okay. All right. I can share the slides. Yes, absolutely. So I will send them to you, Christine. Is that the
Sure.
best thing to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
And the tax implications, that's a really good question because we do have a chartered accountant who sits on our committee. He's retired, and he would be the best to answer this. And we always say in the guide, you know, check with the tax consultant because obviously the home sharer would want a receipt for the income, and so that has to be declared. And I'm not. He has the better. He explains it much better than I do in terms of how that works in terms of your income. And so there may be some implications, but I think his message is still much better in terms of getting the help you need and the amount that it might cost you in terms of having to pay for those kinds of services outside of that. But if you want more information on that, let me know. And I would absolutely get in touch with him to respond to that. So if there's a particular person who would like to know that information, that's fine. The home insurance implications, and will your home be checked over by someone for security issues and safety issues like bathrooms? Yeah, and I think we do tell people to just notify their home insurance. It's a little different because you're sharing your home. It's not like a separate kitchen and all the other things. It's a shared piece. But the staff that are working with Halton Housing Help, for example, will do the home safety check to ensure that the alarms are working, all those kinds of things. Very, very important. So we want to ensure that people are safe. Have all home providers and seekers been single, and how long do most last? Not all home providers are single. We have some couples that are interested in sharing their home as well. They may be getting on in age and need some help. They want to stay in their home and need help with chores, especially cutting grass and shoveling snow and things like that. How long do most last? So that's really interesting because when I asked both Calgary and I asked Vermont, the average length of stay was 10 months and the shortest was 1 day. So that's yeah. And I think the 10 months is because of a student piece. If you have a student, that probably makes sense where they're lasting over 2 semesters staying there. But we've had home shares. I know I've talked to some organizations that have home shares as long as 20 years. So it really just depends. And some people, you might even have a young couple, for example, that want to share a home with a senior and they're trying to save money to purchase their own home. So, you know, it really does depend. And so we've had some home shares now for 4 years in Halton that have been going on, which has been great. Would the home seeker be expected or be allowed to bring her personal items? Yeah, it just depends on the home provider and what kind of room they have. So certainly the home provider often has a bed or maybe some other items, but certainly I think that's the discussion before anything happens. If they have things they want to bring, can they bring it? So it just depends. Again, every situation is very different. Oh yeah, the house in Rockwood. At this time, she was looking for interested parties. Do you know if she has been successful in finding anyone? No, I haven't talked to them as of late. So I know they were, the building was all finished in Rockwood. They are looking for interested parties. These are purchased units. And I think at that time they were, I don't know what they were going for a couple of years ago, under 300,000, I think the units, and lovely units. So I think sometimes it may be more challenging. Maybe people don't want to purchase; they would rather rent in a home with other ladies or other people. So you know, it just depends, and you have to have that interest, right? And depending maybe on location too would be another consideration. It is more rural for sure. What happens if the homeowner wants the home sharer to leave and they do not want to leave? Yeah, it doesn't actually fall under the Residential Tenancies Act. So it's not really a landlord-tenant relationship, since that they are sharing the same space. The homeowner really has all the rights in that situation. So on the agreement that you sign, you may put in the agreement that you would give 30 days notice for that person to leave. So really, it is different that way. But the minute they have their own separate apartment with their own kitchen, etc., that is different. Hope that's helpful. I think I got through them all.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I know that, you know, it's quite fluid, but how many would you say that you would have matched up at any one given time?
Well, right now in Halton, there's only 4 home share arrangements at this time. Especially during COVID, they had not had any take up of interest of home providers, and I can well understand that, given the situation and people being cautious and careful. Home providers have not come forth. So, and I do believe, you know, it really takes that dedicated staff person or two to be able to really focus only on the home share. Because I know for example, in Newfoundland, they spent thousands of dollars on marketing. And I think that's very important to be able to get out there, talk about the program. Wonderful to have a video example of what's happening with home share, of a home share situation and relationship would be lovely, those kinds of things. So I think it's probably those, you know, couple of reasons there in itself, but we do need that dedicated person. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay.
Well, that was extremely interesting. Thank you so much, Heather, for a very informative and thought-provoking presentation. You've presented some interesting workable options for living now and what we might want to do sometime in the future. Certainly aging in place is the goal for most of us.
Yes.
Your presentation certainly offers the possibilities of this happening. But as you say, I'm sure that during time of COVID, this has been a much more challenging task. But thank you very much again for sharing your knowledge, your time with us this evening. It was a wonderful presentation, very informative, and thanks so much, and good night.
Oh, thank you very much. And I'll send you the presentation. So thank you, everybody, and have a very good evening.